Hello, parents, grandparents, future parents, and curious minds. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Steven.
And I'm PJ.
And this is Dad's Discuss. Alright, man. Another episode, another topic. What are you feeling today?
Well, we kind of brought it up just a second ago before this recording started, but finances, just how important they are, but also everything that goes along with it. How do you continue to save while also providing for your kids' needs, helping to make sure that they're set up in life, helping to make sure that you are set up after retirement, if retirement is even possible.
Yeah.
There's just so much that can go on regarding personal finances.
Oh, man. It's my bread and butter now because I love talking personal finances, and we can have there's a whole podcast dedicated to it.
There is. That is very true.
Narrowing down as far as parenting goes, the big one I wanted to talk about is how do we set ourselves up to make sure our kids aren't our sole source of retirement, right?
Yes, I agree. And I think for our generation, of which we are pretty much dead in the millennials, at 88.
Whoop, whoop. Represent.
Thank you. So much of our parents' generation that, is getting to the age where if they have something saved up or getting any type of income, it's solely due to either Social Security or to pension plans, which I am a firm believer that, one, hardly any companies nowadays even offer pensions, but two, I don't think that Social Security is going to exist by the time that we make it to that age.
Oh, yeah, we'll be lucky. I mean, in my numbers, I consider it a zero, so it's like a cherry on top if it's there when we finish.
I agree, and every month or every week, we're paying into it for something that we don't ever expect to see a return on.
Yeah, it's just a donation at this point.
It is, and I don't mind it. I feel like I am helping out the older generation who may have not had the financial savvy that I think most of our generation has to have.
Well, I mean, they were sold a bill of goods too, right? The company will take care of you, sort of thing, back in the day. Or you made lots of money for labor back then too. But then if you didn't stock it away or put it into anything, then it kind of fizzled out, right?
Yep, it sure did. But I agree. Something that's very important is being able to set yourself up and your family financially such that, you're not struggling, but also that you are not burdening your children when you get to that age.
So that boils down for me is, knowing your number that you need in retirement. Just a basic lesson in personal finance that I've gone through is, you can project out how much you're going to spend in retirement. So if you say you want lots of lavish trips like every other month, and I want to eat good and I want to go to restaurants at least once a week, then you can kind of project that number minus a mortgage or anything, because most of the time you want to project that you're not in any sort of debt when you retire, because debt is a huge burden when you retire. And once you know that number that you have to come up with, then you backtrack it to, the universally accepted right now, the 4% rule, which is just that it's theorized that your assets will always grow roughly at 10%, 8 or 10% every year. And then so when you withdraw 4% every year, you're living stably with your assets still growing roughly at 4%. So you always sustain that lifestyle that you want, and you can go a little bit above or below, but you want to retire with that in mind.
Oh, I had never heard that. I guess I assumed that for the most part, after you retire, you are no longer receiving any type of additional income stream into those, so that it's a continual decrease of your retirement funds, not that they could continue to grow while you're pulling out.
Yeah, so that's how you set up your retirement account, though, because it says, some people go straight to all bonds by the time they retire, and that's fine. You'll grow at maybe in 4%, but if you're not afraid of risk and you stay with the market, an 8% gain's easy sort of thing. So you can always live off of it with a safe withdrawal rate of 4%. So you're always gaining money from that interest.
I don't know why I didn't think about that. People listening who do have that knowledge probably think I'm dumb. But
Well, not many people do. So that's why I like to talk about it and bring it up in a podcast, because we learn something every day, and that's why we're here.
Well, thank thank you, Stephen. That was extremely beneficial. Well, let's take it back to the basics then. I want to let everyone know if you are currently employed and if you're not putting anything into a dedicated retirement fund or IRA, please, even if it's 0.5%, it is exponentially valuable to your future self and to your kids to do something of that nature. And if there's a match program at your employer and you're not putting in the max that they match, you're missing out on literal free money.
Yeah, that's at least a lot of the financial gurus you listen to that's 100% gain right there. Like, you don't get that anywhere else in your investments, guaranteed. So a lot of them, some of them that really want you to pay off debt will avoid getting that match. They'll say drop the match and throw it all at debt, but I don't adhere to that one. I solely believe that the match is guaranteed money, get it, and then go all into debt, consumer debt. You can leave low interest debt on the table, in my opinion.
No, I agree with that, but a good way to think about it is if I told Stephen, if you give me $1, I will give you 15 cents. Like, I mean, that's me giving you money, and that's what a company match is.
Yeah, so nice. And to boil back to the replacing income in retirement, the match helps you with meeting this number, but a few people say 15% of your income going to retirement will replace 80% of your income in retirement if you start when you're in your 20s. So if you start just in your 20s putting 15% away into some sort of investment and it grows over time at roughly, like 6 to 8% year over year, then you'll end up with 80% of your income in retirement. So if you can live off of 80% of your income when you retire, then you'd be fine.
80% of your income for every year to how many years?
I don't know what people put their projections at, but it's usually somewhere in the 90s when you're in your 90s.
I didn't realize that. I will say, though, that unless you have a pretty good financial head and may not have a lot of expenses, 15% into retirement is a pretty high percentage.
Yeah,
I know
it's
I have
tough.
never made that.
It is tough. It's something you have to build over time, with discipline and maintenance and stuff. So dropping entertainment, and especially in your 20s, it's near impossible because you're making a lower income. But if you can pull it off, you're going to be set, because one guy's motto is $1 today in your 20s is worth $88 in your retirement.
Wow.
So
okay.
It's 20s. Everybody that retires that they talk to says if I had to go back to my 20s, I would have put more away. Yeah. Because it just compound interest is your friend. It's crazy.
I can see that, but having that financial knowledge is something I suggest everyone who is listening to build better rapport with if you haven't. Yeah. It was so easy for older generations to not think about it with pension plans and stuff.
Right.
But nowadays, almost everything we do is through our phones, and you have to be able to have that understanding of, retirements, stock options, or even just, savings, whether it be through a bank or shoving money into your mattress. So much is focused on the individual understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, and then every company does it different, so it's a big headache. But if you can figure it out, then you're going to be golden.
Yep, I agree. So you mentioned about every company does it different. I'm glad you did, because I've now worked with 4 different employers, and their retirement structure and the way they do things of that nature has all been different. So, for example, my first company was a Fortune 500 company, and while they did have a 401k, their biggest driver was giving you a discount to buy company stock.
Oh, a stock purchase plan.
Yep,
nice.
which was helpful because you would buy the company stock, and if the company was doing good, great, you'd make extra money. But it got me familiar with the stock market, allowing me to sell stock once I purchased it at a discount, and then be able to, play with my money, if you will, and buy other stocks. But not every company has that.
Right. Yeah. Not every company rewards with profits and things like that. But that's why I like working for our ESOP now. Is profit sharing comes naturally, and they put money directly into a retirement for you.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, can you tell them what an ESOP is?
It is a employee stock ownership plan, which is different than an employee stock purchase plan. The purchase plan allows you to become a stockholder in a company that you're working for, but you're just like any other, stockholder in the public sector. So you're just holding gains that everybody else does, and you're part of a pool of money. Whereas the ownership plan, you are an owner and only other employees are owners with you. It's not a publicly run company, so you get a lot of private benefits from not having other stakeholders outside of your organization affecting you internally.
Yep.
So the employee stock ownership plan is usually run in a way where when profits come in for the year after they spend all their R&D money or any other internal expenses sort of things, they'll dump the majority of the leftovers into stock purchasing from retirees or people quitting or whatnot, and put it into stock ownership of the current employees.
Yep, that's exciting. But just like publicly traded companies' stocks, is that price is set, the stock value, based on how well the company is doing, and it does change. It can change quarterly, yearly. I know our company, which is another ESOP such as Stevens,
Nice.
Does it once a year, and they just recently came out publicly with their stock evaluation, and it was a record number, the highest they've had before.
Nice.
So it's
Congrats.
great for me. Thank you. Yeah,
That's awesome.
that was they went ahead and dropped in a nice amount of money into my quote-unquote retirement. Can you call that the retirement account, or it's just the ESOP account?
Yeah, it is effectively. So it acts as like your tax-deferred 401k.
Okay.
So it is essentially, if you just had one stock in your tax-deferred 401k, that would be it, sort of thing. So at least our company, the way they do it, when you do retire, you sell those stocks as they buy it back, and it goes into your 401k tax deferred.
I appreciate that. I think that must be what they do, because we also do have a traditional 401k with a small match that we can put into, but we have that separate amount that, as you mentioned, will become available to us when we retire or exit the company. Okay.
Yep. So that's how it works. So it would just roll into that 401k at whatever contributions you want, or a set investments you want. Yeah.
Okay. And that's why treating it as a stock, which essentially it is, the better the company is doing, the higher that amount is. If you retire and the company's,
excellent,
like doing better than it was when you first started, that's more money for you. And so it does have that, it helps people have that drive to say, I want the company to do as good as it can, because it will affect me personally in terms of like the monetary value that I will receive.
Yeah. Therefore, setting you up to where your kids don't have to take care of you.
That's right. This is the Dads Discuss podcast.
But I mean, that boils down to it, because I mean, it's very applicable to our lives. Is we want to drive these companies to where they are hugely successful, which means missing out on some family time sometimes.
This is true. Yeah, I certainly have put in overtime hours, taken over night business trips. Have another one coming up next week, actually.
Oh, wow.
But, these are the things we do to make sure that our families are taken care of.
Yeah. And hopefully, a lot of companies, especially employee-owned ones, will give back to your family and whatnot with, parties and things of that nature. That's what ours tries to do, is a family picnic in the summer and a kid's Christmas party in the winter, so that's always nice.
Yep, and I certainly don't want to discourage anyone who doesn't have opportunities like that. I know me and Stephen both feel very blessed to have gotten where we've gotten through our hard work and everything, but there are companies out there that don't value their employees as much, and your family time may be severely affected. And I highly recommend to just make sure that you have your priorities where they are. I know for me, if I were to be in a situation where I felt like I was doing nothing but working and not spending any time with my family, that would not be
time to reassess.
Yeah, time to find other opportunities.
Yeah, there's always people out there that have to work 2 jobs to stay afloat, and I
Absolutely.
definitely wish I could help every single one of them. The cards you're dealt isn't that easy, but giving back and going to charity with what you're blessed with is definitely a big part of our family too.
So we mentioned about saving for ourselves and hoping to have it set such that we are not dependent upon our children. But Stephen, what about saving for the children? Do you have any types of
Insight.
That's the good word. Any insight into what you may or may not be doing that you would like to do in terms of helping them get financially stable?
Well, I'm all about spreadsheet and numbers, so it comes down to, like everybody says, put your mask on first. When a plane's going down, they always say, even if you have a kid in your lap, put yours on first and then do the kids. It's the same thing for finances. So, we talked about that number in the future. My wife and I need to have the plan set. So if it takes 25% of our income every month to get to that number, just generalizing, then that's where the first 25% goes to. And then we boil it back from there. Okay, what's our living expenses? What's our fixed costs? That may be another 50%, so we're up to 75% now. So what do we do with that last 25? Do we have fun with it, or do we use 5% for the kids' future through 529s for school funds, or high yield savings accounts so they can just have cash? Or there's also the option of custodial accounts, so you can open up a stock brokerage account in their name and drive the stocks with them and teach them how to invest throughout their younger years.
That's cool. So you can open. I'd love a little more information about that, and I'm sure our listeners would too.
Yeah.
So that's like almost like a brokerage account you could open up for someone who's under 18?
Yep.
Really?
And then you can teach them how to invest and pick stocks and things like that, or ETFs along the way, and then they have access to it when they're 18, and they can learn and go off on their own. So one thing also, when they start making income, saving for the future is what I've heard several financial gurus talk about, is once they start making income, whether it be babysitting or lifeguarding or mechanic or whatever, you can help them open up a Roth IRA as soon as, checks start coming in. And then what they do is they say, hey, I can afford it. You have, starting this year, the max is $7,000. Whatever you put into that Roth IRA, I'll match it. I'll give you that money. Caveat being, you can only put in your earned income into a Roth IRA. So you can't put in, say they make $7,000 for the year. They can put $7,000 in.
You can't put more than what? Okay.
Right. So they can't put in $10,000 even though they only made $7,000. Well, they can't put $10,000 in anyways, but you can't put in. They can't make $5,000 and they can't put in $7,000 for the year.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. I was still stuck on the term financial guru that you keep mentioning because it almost sounds like you were one of those.
No, I just listen to them. I mean, this is not financial advice. I got to caveat it with that because you can get sued for that. I don't have a CPA or anything.
Okay, yes.
If I went out and got my CPA license, I could give more direct advice. But
yeah, nothing in here should ever be considered advice. This is two dads discussing.
A couple of dads talking about what you guys talk about.
No, I did not realize that. I'm glad you brought that up.
These little tricks.
Okay, it's certainly something that I do think about quite often. I'm lucky and thankful enough. I've found myself in a good position after years of searching and working that I found a company that I feel like is a good fit for myself. So we do have a bonus structure. We have
nice.
The ESOP, as you mentioned, and a very competitive industry salary. But what to do with that to make sure that me, my wife, the kids are, financially in a good position.
Yeah.
It can be so hard to fall into the debt trap, if you will.
Yeah.
And then
we live in America after all.
Good old, that's right. But the stock options, as you mentioned, doing that for the kids is
Yeah.
something that I will probably have to look into. And I
Yeah, you got
suggest our
kids at
listeners may-
teenage years. Yeah. You talked about your oldest starting to make money. And, you know.
He is, and he actually has been doing very good, doing it, old school, as I would say, how we all started out. He's got his checking account where the money comes in, but he does have a savings account, and he has automatic moves over there, and he's been putting money in there every paycheck, saving up to, as most young teenagers would, he'd like to, get himself a new vehicle, which
Oh, nice.
I fully support, but his understanding of, my expenses are X and my bills are Y, this is how much I'm saving.
Yeah.
He does have that concept, and I'm
Nice.
really proud.
Well, if he starts living on 50, 30, 20 now, he'll be set.
50, 30, 20. For those of you who don't know what that is, such as myself, please, financial guru, non-CPA advice, tell me what that is.
That's the standard rule of you spend 50% of your money on needs max. You don't want it above 50%. And then you spend 30% on wants and 20% on for the future. So 50, 30, 20 is always a pretty good rule to shoot for, sort of thing. But, obviously if you can get your needs down to 35%, then you have more room to throw it at wants or saving.
Got it.
To set you up even better for the future.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned about that, because I know a lot of places, everything is just so expensive nowadays, but the having that money available for the needs, it's all too easy to not have that. But some of these places I've heard, especially like in the renting world, will not even let you rent there unless you can prove 3 times the monthly income of what it costs to rent at that place.
Wow.
But
I mean, that makes sense,
It does.
because rent being 33% of your income is ridiculous.
Yeah, it seems a little odd, but when you think about it, they're intentionally trying to help people who may not be able to afford that. They're trying to say, look, that we don't want you setting yourself up for failure. And if you don't make this much, then living here is going to really eat into your costs.
Yeah, because then you're left with, as long as you follow that rule, you're left with, what, 27%?
No, 67% there.
Well, I was 50 minus 33 and 17.
Oh, okay.
17% on food, cars, maintenance, all the other needs that fall into that 50% category, toilet paper.
Yeah, and in our generation, I feel like it's only getting worse. Things that our parents didn't have to think about that we now consider necessities: cell phone bill, internet. These are charges that everyone, I feel like our age and younger, considers as absolute needs. Didn't exist back in the day.
Right. But, some things are getting a little bit better too, because EVs are cheaper to run on electric than gas. So maybe one day. I mean, their upfront costs are more, right? But, running, maintenance, and everything, I assume, are lower. I haven't bought one from experience, so I don't know. And I usually don't like to speak to things until I've experienced them. That's why there's some financial things I know about, but I haven't done them myself, so I don't like to talk about them.
Understandable.
So I haven't actually done a custodial account, but I have done 529s for the kids already, which the nice thing about Alabama is there's some tax leniency when you put money into a 529 for your kid. Okay. So that's cool. And then the Secure Act that was signed last year puts it to where if a 529 is 15 years old, I think, the kid has the option to transfer it into a Roth IRA if they're not going to use it for school.
Nice.
Which is really nice.
So in terms of helping your children learn some financial literacy, are you and Catherine on the camp of having some type of allowance? We have never done that with any of our kids. If they need something or want it and we have the funds, we get it. But we have also had them do chores. We're not paying for them. And I grew up never having an allowance either.
Yeah. I think it boils down to, at least my mindset currently, they're not quite to the age yet, is that they need to have some skin in the game. So if they want to buy something of a luxury item, then they need to, work in some fashion for it.
Okay.
Whether it be, just something we need them to do that week, or maybe their grades are suffering, or, some sort of skin in the game where they earned it rather than just handing it to them sort of thing.
Yep.
And then always birthdays and stuff, it's going to be, let me shower you with presents because you're my little girl. But if it's something that they want on extra of lifestyle, then they've got to contribute something to the mix.
No, I do agree with that. I'd love to hear from our listeners how many of you, are considering or even are currently using some type of allowance system week to week, month to month, or for those of you who have more mine and Steven's idea of, if you want to have some money, we're going to help you understand the value of it through, work.
And a lot of it comes down to, how to spend that money is budgeting, right?
Yep.
And that's a whole other topic on its own, for sure. I had an allowance growing up, and I don't know, we had a mix of allowance and earned money, which was kind of weird, and I don't know if I learned any great lessons because of that, but
okay,
we'll see. I've got vast opinions, for sure. I mean, an allowance, maybe it's a good idea if it's teaching them that an income's coming through. How do I take that and budget it out for my needs if that's the only thing I'm getting this month? So maybe that's a lesson for a year. Be like, okay, we're going to an allowance system and you're going to get this much each month. You can work with me on a budget or yourself on how you want to spend it, but I'm not giving you more money for luxury goods outside of that.
I understand, and then they can see something that they may want, and they can kind of determine like, well, I could spend this money now, but if I save up a little more, I can get this thing that I really do want.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And maybe that, we're just spitballing here, right? So maybe that would teach them a little bit on, when income starts coming in from a job sort of thing.
All right.
How to think in that manner and budgeting that 50-30-20.
50-30-20. I will definitely remember that. So you had talked about the 529s. I know your kids are still on the younger spectrum of this, but have you thought at all about how old they might be when you would consider opening them their own bank account with checking and savings? Or?
They've got savings accounts now.
Oh,
actually, the local bank had a deal where if you open your kid a savings account and put $200 in, they'd match it. So we hopped on that train real quick.
That is really nice. Okay.
So they've already got $400 in their little savings account, and we'll just, anytime people give them money, we'll throw it in there or in the 529, depending on whoever gives them money, what they'd rather have.
Oh, that's nice. As early in the podcast episode, we talked about free money. If someone's going to match you, if someone's going to match you a deposit to open a checking or savings account. Sounds like a good plan.
Gotta hop on that while the getting's good, yeah.
All right.
That was pretty good. We're pretty happy about that one. 100% gain for the kids right off the bat.
Yes, that is good.
It's only bad that they didn't let us do it for future kids, too. Because be like, all right, we're going to have at least 3 more. Let me open 3 more.
Sorry, you must have the kid in hand when you get this.
Can't just go in and say, I'm going to have 10 kids in the future.
Oh, well, let me scratch that off the list.
No. For those that know me, we're not planning to have 10 kids anymore.
Now, it's crazy how much I feel like me and Kimber have had to learn, even before we had kids, but just individually, this was never something that I remember learning a great deal about at a young age, and it certainly wasn't taught at the primary school level, but it's so important.
Yeah.
And being able to help my children learn and understand the importance of budgeting your finances, how stocks work, everything like that. It's, as you said, there's entire podcasts dedicated to it.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to talk about, that's for sure. The better you can set yourself up, the less stressful it is. We're still in what everybody calls the messy middle.
The messy middle. I'm going to start telling people that. I'm just in the messy middle. So.
Yeah, your 30s is considered kind of the muddy, messy part of finances because there's this graph that's like, you're in your 20s and you start making income and you're going up and you don't have, kids or a spouse or anything. So, you have a lot more flexible income and so much time, and then the graph diverts and your time goes down and your money goes up, but then you have no time for anything because everything's messy, and so your income's still going up, but then your funds go down too with it because you're having to spend it on more things like getting a house to fit all the kids and the spouse and
more clothes, more food, more everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
So your disposable income goes down with your time, and you're stressed out, and then eventually you see the graph come back up because the kids get older and income keeps going up, so disposable income goes up, and I mean that's where you want life's trajectory to go. I definitely put the word out that if you're a parent struggling out there, in your 30s, it'll get better on the other side. Just keep grinding and ask for more from your boss, because that's another tidbit to make yourself successful in the end is if you don't talk about it, it's not going to happen.
Yep.
So
I do, and I've actually been a very big proponent of this. So many companies try and downplay people talking about their incomes with each other. I am not on that camp at all. If I make a certain amount, I will gladly tell you how much that is, and I would hope that you do the same in return, because if employees are not talking about that value, no one is going to know how much they make.
Yeah.
The companies have the opportunity to take advantage if they are,
that type of company. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, for sure. And, on top of that, at least in our world of contracting, a contract moves over to someone else and you think people, they're making a certain amount, they're probably happy with that, but you may be unhappy with it. And I've been able to get, as a manager, people raises because they come to me and they say, hey, I've done all this work for you. Don't you think I deserve something? And I'm like, I didn't know you needed something. Like, once you speak up, somebody knows and they can go ask somebody else and fight for you. But if you're quiet and you're sitting there grinding day to day and you don't tell anybody, you're going to be stuck there forever.
That's a great point. I'm glad you mentioned that. But yeah, communication is key, especially when it comes to finances.
Yeah.
People aren't going to know unless you tell them.
Yeah. It's happened to me too, because I've been quiet most of my career and I just kind of go ebbs and flows. And once I started being like, look, I have kids now, I need to make more money, then people listen. Like, yeah, it's not something to shy away from, because worst case scenario, you go somewhere else if they're not listening, right?
Yeah, no, I would certainly agree with that.
Market yourself correctly. That's how you make success and grow your income. Or, go start your own business. But I can't speak to that because I've never done it, so...
Something that I respect anyone who has, because that is not for me. Like, I cannot see myself starting my own business.
Well, I mean, if this podcast does well, you're in the neck of it right now, bud.
Look at that.
All right, well, I think that's a pretty good segue to the end, don't you think?
I do. I appreciate all of our listeners. As always, if you have anything you'd like to add and want to hear more about, drop us a line, send us a message, and appreciate everyone listening in.
Yeah, let us know if you've set yourself up for success so your kids don't depend on you.
That's
or
right.
You don't depend on your kids.
Oh, that's
got that backwards. Thanks for joining.
50, 30, 20.
Thanks for listening to Dad's Discuss.
Please like and subscribe wherever you are listening.
Also, comment any topics you would like us to discuss and share this with your friends and family.
Finally, if you would like to be on the podcast or discuss any topics, please reach out via our contact information below.
Yeah.
They're living so much older than what they were expecting, and a lot of them either have like the pensions or solely dependent upon Social Security, both of which we're not going to have.
Right. Yep, that's why our generation has to know more about finances
than
the previous, so it's been fun.